In one of the most charged moments ever broadcast from Capitol Hill, Representative Jasmine Crockett calmly slid a stack of verified messages toward President Trump. The nation watched his reaction unfold in real time. Cameras were everywhere perched on tripods, balanced on shoulders, mounted high above the crowded hearing room like unblinking eyes. Bright lights glared down on the long mahogany table where Trump's legal team sat, flipping through thick folders as if paper could shield them from what was coming. The air carried the stale scent of coffee and fresh copier ink. Crockett leaned forward, the microphone picking up every shift in her voice, in a deep blue blazer that cut sharply against the beige walls. She locked eyes with the witnesses before her. "Mr. President," she said, her voice slicing through the shuffle of papers, "this is a matter of national concern, one that touches not only your public duties, but also your private conduct." The gallery rippled with reaction. Journalists glanced up from their laptops. One photographer raised his camera. Trump sat stiff-backed at the head of his team, his face unreadable, one hand moving slowly toward his notes. "Before we move to policy questions," Crockett continued, "I'd like to enter into the record a verified text exchange and a signed affidavit from a witness with direct knowledge of a personal relationship you've kept from the public eye." The press section came alive, microphones adjusted, pens raced across paper. Trump's attorney, a tall man in a charcoal suit, leaned in to whisper urgently. Trump's eyes stayed locked on Crockett, his other hand gripping the table edge. "These messages," she said, holding up a printed sheet, "document private meetings between you and an individual who, according to evidence, has received substantial support from entities with business before the White House." Gasps broke from the back rows. A chair scraped loudly against the tile. "Madame Representative, we object," Trump's lawyer cut in. "The relevance is clear," Crockett replied evenly. "When a personal relationship intersects with official decision-making, the American people have a right to know. This is not about private life, it's about public trust." Reporters scribbled frantically. CNN's live feed zoomed in as Crockett slid the documents to the clerk. Trump leaned forward into his mic. "Representative Crockett, this is a disgrace. You're wasting the country's time." Her answer came without pause. "Mr. President, if defending the integrity of public office is a waste of time, then this country's in deeper trouble than I thought." The room seemed to stop breathing. Even the guards near the doors stood still. From the back, a cameraman whispered, "This will be everywhere in an hour." Trump exchanged low words with his legal team, but his gaze stayed fixed on the tabula beat too long for comfort. Crockett flipped a page in her notes and leaned back, the calm before what everyone sensed would be her next strike. In network control rooms, producers barked orders. "Get that clip ready. We're leading with it." At Fox News, an anchor, watching live, murmured into her earpiece, "Stay on, Crockett, she's running this." By the time she moved to her next question, the balance in the room had shifted. Trump's team still had their talking points, but now they were reacting instead of leading. What no one yet realized was just how far Crockett was prepared to push on how much she'd been holding back only an hour earlier. The tone had been routine, polite greetings, procedural questions, quiet C-SPAN coverage. But Crockett hadn't flown in for background noise. For days, she'd been cross-checking the president's statements against records, timelines, and financial disclosures. In a cramped back office in Dallas, she'd spent late nights replaying old interviews, circling inconsistencies. The Mistress angle hadn't been her starting point. It emerged only after tracing anomalies in Trump's travel logs. It's a small detail at first glance, but one that grew larger and more damning. With every confirmation, her staff had cautioned her that morning, "Don't start with it. Make him comfortable first." So she did. She opened with budget allocations for Midwestern infrastructure. then moved to farm subsidies, a topic Trump's team liked to promote. From there, she touched on military spending in the Southwest. Each subject was deliberate, chosen to inch the conversation closer to her real target without revealing it too soon. Trump, leaning back in his chair earlier that morning, seemed at ease. He shared small jokes with allies on the panel, smirked at a friendly softball question from a Republican representative, and tapped his pen on the table with a relaxed rhythm. Crockett didn't disrupt that rhythm. She built on it. "Mr. President," she said politely, "we appreciate your willingness to address concerns about transparency today." The line was harmless enough to disarm him, yet vague enough to mean anything. Trump nodded, chin resting in his hand. "Of course," he replied. "Transparency is important." Her gaze stayed locked on him. "You've spoken publicly about preventing conflicts of interest. I'd like to ask a few questions about how you ensure personal relationships never influence your decisions." The shift was subtle, but it cracked the morning's polite tone. Across the room, one of Trump's aides sat up straighter. "Have no conflicts of interest," Trump said firmly. "I've been very clear about that." Crockett flipped through her binder, stopping on a tab marked in red. "And to your knowledge, no personal acquaintances have benefited financially from policy changes under your administration." Before Trump could answer, his attorney cut in. "That's an incredibly broad question, Representative." "The president has countless acquaintances." "Then let's narrow it down," Crockett replied evenly. She checked her notes, then met Trump's eyes. "Between March of last year and July of this year, did you meet privately with anyone who received funding or resources linked to federal contracts?" Trump's brow furrowed. "I meet with all kinds of people. That doesn't mean anything improper happened." She smiled, not warmly, but in a way that said she already knew the answer. "I'll come back to that." From there, she let the tension cool, shifting to trade negotiations, education funding, and rural health care. But every so often, she slipped in questions about meetings, travel, or informal gatherings, a slow tightening of the net, barely visible unless you were watching closely by the time she circled back. Trump had relaxed again, and even his legal team seemed confident the morning would pass without fireworks. Then Crockett gave a small nod to the clerk. Two aides entered, quietly through a side door, each carrying a sealed envelope. They placed them in front of her without a word. It wasn't time for the reveal yet. But the weight of those envelopes made one thing clear. She had something real. White House aides exchanged glances. In the press gallery, a producer whispered to a cameraman, "Keep both of them in frame." If anyone had thought Crockett was bluffing, belief began to fade. She ended the segment with a deceptively casual question. "Mr. President, do you stand by your previous testimony that all personal relationships unrelated to official duties have remained entirely private?" Trump gave a short laugh, waving a hand. "Of course, I have nothing to hide." Crockett closed her binder with a soft snap. "Good to know," she said. "We'll revisit that in a moment." Those words changed the room. No shouting, no pounding fists, just the quiet sense that the air had shifted. Reporters sat up straighter, fingers poised over keyboards. Crockett adjusted her microphone, letting the faint scrape of metal remind everyone she still held the floor. "Mr. President," she began again, "earlier you stated that no personal relationships have influenced your decision-making in office. I want to ask something very specific." She paused. "On May 17th of this year, did you spend time at the Mandarin Oriental Hotel in Miami?" Trump's head turned slightly, eyes narrowing. "I travel a lot," he said slowly. "I've been to Miami many times. I don't remember every single date." "That's fair," Crockett replied, flipping open the red-tapped section of her binder. "But perhaps this will jog your memory. On that date, hotel security logs show a guest under an assumed name, checked into a suite just 2 doors from yours, paid in cash. The guest matches the description of a woman frequently seen entering private events hosted by you and members of your staff. The room went still. A pen rolled off a desk in the press section, the small clatter drawing a few glances before all eyes returned to Crockett. Trump leaned forward. "You're talking about a hotel guest. This is nonsense. People stay in hotels all the time." "That's true," she said evenly, still reading. "But according to witness statements, you spent over 3 hours in that suite that evening." His legal team began shuffling papers, whispering under their breath. One attorney finally spoke. "Representative, we object to the insinuation." "I'm not insinuating," Crockett said, voice steady. "I'm stating what the evidence suggests. The public can decide how to interpret it." Trump leaned back slightly, glancing toward the cameras. "This is nothing but a hit job, baseless claims." Crockett didn't bite. She leaned forward instead. "Do you know a woman named Veronica Hale?" The name hung in the air. A few reporters began typing furiously, sensing the significance. Trump hesitated, his mouth half open before closing again. "I meet a lot of people. I don't remember every name." "That's understandable," Crockett said with a nod. "For the record, Mrs. Hale is a former event coordinator who has done contract work for multiple political fundraisers, including one at Mar-a-Lago last year. She also received consulting payments through a company that, according to federal filings, saw an unusual revenue spike after a defense procurement decision made by your administration." A murmur rippled through the gallery. Cameras zoomed in on the beads of sweat along Trump's temple. His lawyer spoke again, speculative. "It's documented," Crockett countered. "The payment is public record." "What isn't publicatus?" An affidavit from Ms. Hale describing her relationship with the president, including private meetings in multiple cities while policy negotiations were underway. Trump's eyes flickered toward his team. He said, "Nothing. I'll be entering that affidavit into the record later this session," Crockett continued. "But for now, I'll ask Agandu, you deny any personal relationship with Ms. Hale." "I have no inappropriate relationships," Trump said slowly into the mic. "This is a witch hunt," noted. Crockett closed her binder halfway. "The public will review the evidence and make up their own minds." The room tightened with anticipation. Everyone knew she wasn't finished, not with this line of questioning. Not with this witness, and certainly not with the president. At 11:03 a.m., Crockett gave a small signal to the clerk. 2 aides entered carrying a sealed evidence box labeled in bold black marker. Exhibit 14, Verified Communications. The latch snapped open. Cameras leaned in. Inside was a stack of printed text messages, each page bearing a digital verification. "Seal from a third-party authentication firm. Mr. President," Crockett said, locking eyes with him. "These messages are between you and Ms. Veronica Hale. They are time-stamped, geotagged, and independently verified. Do you recognize them?" Trump bent toward his attorney, whispering. The lawyer stayed expressionless, but scribbled something quickly. "I don't know what you're talking about," Trump said finally, his voice lowered now. Crockett turned to the first page. "This, May 17th, 7:42 p.m. In Miami," the message read, "Suite is ready. No press here. Same arrangement as last time." 15 minutes later, the reply came. "Good. Keep it quiet. We'll talk about the deal." This time, there was no gasp, just a sharp collective intake of breath from the gallery. The first leak had shocked them. This was confirmation. Trump shifted in his seat. "Anyone can fake messages. This is nonsense." "They're authenticated," Crockett replied evenly. "Your phone carrier verified the origin. In addition, the hotel security footage shows you entering the suite and leaving 3 hours later with Miss Hale." A Republican committee member leaned toward his mic. "Madam Representative, this is an outrageous spectacle." Crockett didn't flinch. It's an accountability hearing. We're here to determine whether personal conduct influenced national policy. Ms. Hale's company's connection to recent defense contracts makes this a matter of public trust. She handed the first packet to the clerk. Cameras tracked every movement as it was stamped and passed to the stenographer. Trump's lawyer tried to cut in. Representative Crockett, you're engaging in political theater. Theater is make-believe, she said, without raising her voice. This is evidence. She lifted the second documenta notarized affidavit. This sworn statement, signed by Mrs. Hale, under penalty of perjury, details multiple occasions she met with the president during policy negotiations, including discussions about her company's defense contract interests. Trump's posture tightened. His gaze flicked toward the back of the room. I'll give you one more opportunity to address this before it becomes part of the official record, Crockett said. I have nothing to address. This is a disgrace you're smearing. Me, because you can't win on policy. She let the words hang, then slid the affidavit forward. The clerk's stamp echoed like a gavel strike. From the press section, someone murmured, "That's the headline." This is all fake, Trump told the cameras. Every bit of it. You'll see. Crockett turned to the gallery. The American? People deserve leaders whose decisions aren't clouded by personal entanglements, especially when those involve taxpayer dollars and national security. A producer in the back whispered into a phone, "Get the graphics ready." 2 minutes. To air. Crockett folded her hands, the grenade now on the table. Trump leaned forward, elbows planted, voice sharp. This is the kind of political garbage people are tired of. Lies. Fake documents, a setup. A CNN camera caught the flush in his cheeks, the tightening jaw. You think you're scoring points, he said? You've got nothing. Nothing. Mr. President, Crockett replied, personal attacks don't change the facts. The evidence is on record. Every American can read it. He waved her off. The so-called evidence is fabricated. My lawyers will deal with this joke. Your lawyers are here, she said. And I've already addressed them. The gallery. Stirred, one of his attorneys whispered urgently, but Trump pressed on. You people have been after me from day one. Throw in some personal gossip and try to call it corruption. It's pathetic. Crockett didn't blink. If it were gossip, Mr. President, we wouldn't be here. But when private relationships intersect with public contracts, that's not gossip. That's oversight. A pause not long, but long. Enough for the cameras to catch him scanning the side of the room, looking for something or someone to break the moment. You've been reading too many tabloids, he muttered into the mic. Now you're trying to turn Congress into one. Her tone stayed level. The difference, Mr. President, is that tabloids don't require sworn affidavits and third-party verification. We do. A faint murmur ran through the audience, not loud, but sharp, like the crowd recognizing a clean hit in a boxing match. Trump leaned back, gripping his pen so tightly his knuckles whitened. I don't have time for this nonsense. Other countries got bigger problems? That's true, Crockett said. But corruption at the highest level of government happens to be one of them. The air thickened. Each exchange landed like a body blow. His legal team rifled through papers, as if a miracle defense might be hiding in the fine print. From the press table, a Boston Globe reporter scribbled in all caps. Trump shaken, not letting go. Look, Trump said, forcing a smile that never reached his eyes. I've been through worse. You're not the first to try to take me down. Won't work. Never has. Crockett tilted her head, weighing her words. Mr. President, this isn't about taking anyone down. It's about holding the most powerful office in the country to the same standard as any public servant. For the first time, he didn't answer right away. He glanced at his lawyers, then back at her. The silence stretched until a network crew, Member whispered, "This is the clip." Finally, Trump spoke quieter now. "You think people care about this?" They don't. They care about jobs, security, making America great again. And part of making America great, Crockett replied, is making sure no one, no matter how powerful, puts personal gain ahead of the public good. The line wasn't just for the room. It was built for television. But while it echoed inside the chamber, the real battle for public opinion was already raging outside. Trump's attorney, a tall man with slicked back hair and a reputation for aggressive cross-examination, leaned in at last. "Representative Crockett," he said, voice polished to sound authoritative yet dismissive, "this committee is supposed to address legislative oversight. Instead, you've turned it into a stage 4 character assassination." Crockett let him speak, face unreadable. "You've presented so-called evidence that's flimsy at best." He pressed on. "The American people can see through this. It's a distraction from real issues this president is solving." "Are you finished?" Crockett asked calmly, hands folded. "I haven't even started," he said with a smirk meant for the cameras. She opened her binder, flipping to a fresh set of documents. "I'm glad you said that. I'd like to direct your attention to the documented timeline of Ms. Hale's meetings with the president, cross-referenced against official policy actions and contract approvals. This is not character assassination. This is a conflict of interest inquiry, exactly what this committee is authorized to investigate." The smirk faltered, just for a second. "You're stretching the definition of conflict of interest beyond recognition." "I think the public can decide whether it's a stretch," she said. "When every meeting coincides with a favorable development for her company, that's not coincidence. That's a pattern." Trump shifted in his seat. His lawyer's attempt to control the room was only giving her more oxygen. "Representative," the attorney said, "you're making inferences that can't be substantiated in a court of law." "This isn't a court of law," she replied. "It's Congress. Our duty is to shine light on questionable conduct before it becomes a legal crisis." Another ripple moved through the press section. Another clean hit. The lawyer tried again, his voice rising this time. "You're attacking the integrity of the office without proof of wrongdoing." Crockett's tone stayed calm. "We have proof of conduct. We have evidence showing overlapping timelines between private meetings and policy shifts. Whether that's wrongdoing is for further investigation, but it's certainly relevant. The American people deserve to know." The exchange began to feel like a courtroom duel, each side trying to trap the other. Every word calculated for both the live audience and millions watching on TV. Trump, who had been watching, suddenly cut in. "You know what this is? A disgrace. Pure political theater. She's just trying to make a name for herself." Crockett turned toward him. "Not the lawyer, Mr. President. And if asking questions that reveal the truth makes my name more known, I'm fine with that. The difference is I'm not hiding what I'm doing." The line hit hard. A few committee members who'd been silent all day shifted in their seats. The attorney tried to change the subject policy. Military funding, trade agreements, but Crockett refused to follow. Every time he threw out a broad topic, she brought it back to Ms. Hale, the meetings, and the contracts. Finally, she leaned forward. "If your client has nothing to hide, why not allow us to review all visitor logs, phone records, and travel receipts related to Ms. Hale for the past 18 months? That would clear this up quickly." The attorney hesitated just a moment too long before answering. "Those records involve private presidential business that has nothing to do with this so-called investigation." Crockett's faint smile was all the response she needed. Then the refusal will speak for itself. Whispers swept the gallery as reporters typed updates. The lawyer stacked his papers, signaling the exchange was over, but Crockett wasn't finished. "We'll be issuing a formal request for those records by the end of today." And I'll remind the committee that refusal to comply can be considered obstruction. Trump shook his head, muttering under his breath. Across the room, a network correspondent scrawled in big letters, "Crockett wins round 1." Outside the hearing room, the clash was already spreading online. Within 10 minutes, the first clip hit X with the caption, "Jasmine Crockett confronts President Trump over secret relationship tied to defense contracts." Watch. 20,000 views in 5 minutes. By 11:30, hashtag Crockett vs. Trump and hashtag hearing bombshell were trending. Clips flooded group chats, Slack channels, Instagram stories shared even by people who rarely talked politics. Cable news cut the footage into replays. On MSNBC, a commentator said, "She's holding her ground like a prosecutor in a closing argument." On Fox News, a panelist called it a smear campaign, as the lower third read, "Trump under fire from Dem Rep over private matter." TikTok edits popped up slow-motion shots of Crockett sliding the affidavit across the table. Trump gesturing in frustration, all set to dramatic music. One version hit 2 million views in under an hour. Blogs lit up with hot takes. Progressive sites ran headlines like "Crockett delivers crushing blow to Trump's credibility." Conservative YouTubers posted videos titled "Jasmine Crockett goes to far, here's why could backfire." On Facebook, a retired teacher from Ohio wrote, "I don't care what side you're on, this is how you hold power accountable." Another replied, "She's grandstanding. This is all theater." It didn't matter which side people chose, every share only boosted the reach in Los Angeles. A social media producer watched engagement charts spike. "This is going to top the charts by the end of the day," she told her editor. "Get 3 follow-up pieces ready." Meanwhile, the political meme machine went into overdrive. One showed Crockett with a caption, "Cooler than your lawyer." Another split-screened her holding evidence with Trump mid-rant. This meeting could have been an indictment at the White House Communications Office. No one was laughing. Aides huddled around laptops, bracing for what came next. As the clip rocketed across social media, panic set in. "We need a statement before this snowballs," one aide muttered. "It's already snowballing," another replied. "We're just trying to slow the avalanche." Crockett's team was swamped calls, texts, and media requests pouring in without pause. Outside the hearing room, her wiry communications director juggled 2 phones at once, one for cable producers, the other for digital outlets begging for post-hearing interviews. By noon, the analytics showed something rare. This wasn't just a political trend. The clip had spilled into entertainment spaces with late-night talk show accounts retweeting it, almost guaranteeing it would end up in that evening's monologues. Inside the chamber, Crockett stayed unshaken, calm, collected, flipping through her notes, ignoring the chaos outside. Trump, however, wasn't so detached. Every so often, an aide slipped him a phone. Each glance deepened his scowl. The storm was no longer contained to the roomette, was everywhere. The real scramble was in the West Wing. The moment Crockett slid the affidavit to the clerk had already become the image of the morning. In the communications office, staffers huddled around a table cluttered with laptops, coffee cups, and half-eaten granola bars. Muted TVs ran closed captions on a loop. Alleged relationship. Defense contracts. Affidavit entered into record. "We have to pick an angle now," said the communications director, loosening his tie. "Do we flat out deny, or call it an invasion of privacy? If we say privacy, we're basically confirming it happened." One aide countered. Another voice, "Attack her credibility. Make her the story." Upstairs, Trump paced in his private study, 2 senior advisors watching. "They're not getting away with this," he barked. "Did you see her face? She's enjoying this." "Sir, if you hit her personally, it just feeds her narrative," one advisor warned. Trump jabbed a finger at him. No, this is war. She wants to make me the story, I'll make her the story. In the press office, Aaron Chandler drafted a statement. These baseless accusations are part of a coordinated smear campaign by partisan extremists who fear the president's success. The American people are tired of these political games. She paused, then swapped smear campaign for political theater on advice from the legal team. A deputy urged her to hurry. CNN was about to air Crockett's closing remarks. Meanwhile, the social media team worked frantically. One staffer edited together unrelated moments from the hearing where Trump looked calm and authoritative. If her clip is the first thing people see, we've already lost, he told his colleague. But the flood had already broken the dam. Every major outlet had the story on its homepage. Headlines differed, but the message was clear. A sitting president had just been confronted. Live, with allegations of a secret relationship and potential corruption. This is the image that sticks, a Fox News correspondent whispered to a colleague. Her calm, him flustered. Back in the hearing room, during recess, Crockett sat in silence, her face unreadable, her advantage undeniable. Sipping water as her aides leaned in with whispered updates, she neither smiled nor gloated. Still, there was a quiet assurance in her demeanor, like someone who already knew the White House's panicked response was part of the victory. Upstairs, in the West Wing, the debate began. Should they drag Miss Hale into the spotlight? We could force her to deny it, one aide suggested. If she says nothing happened, Crockett loses momentum. Another shook his head. Or it backfires if she refuses. People assume it's true. If she confirms, it's a scandal. If she dodges, the story lingers. There's no clean escape. By 12:15 p.m., the official statement was ready. The president categorically denies the false and defamatory claims made during today's hearing. These reckless allegations are a shameful distraction from the important work being done for the American people. Within seconds, it was on every White House channel. Within minutes, commentators were dissecting it. Notice how they don't deny the documents exist, one analyst pointed out on air. They just call the claims false. Inside the West Wing, frustration grew. Calls poured in from congressional allies, conservative media, even foreign leaders' offices, all demanding answers. But the reality was sinking in. Crockett's composure and timing had locked in a narrative they couldn't erase. In Dallas, Crockett's office buzzed like never before. Phones rang constantly, national news, local radio, international reporters requesting comment. Her communications director juggled 3 calls at once, repeating, "We'll have a statement after the hearing concludes." Staffers rushed through hallways carrying transcripts, social media analytics, and interview requests. The numbers were staggering, over 1 million mentions of her name on X since morning. Cable networks ran the moment she entered the affidavit. Into the record on a loop. Each network spun its own angle. Crockett, unfazed by the frenzy, sat with a yellow legal pad between hearing breaks, jotting notes for the next round. "This isn't over," she told her chief of staff. "We follow the money." Her team knew that this wasn't a one-off moment. This was her method. Find the weak spot and press until the truth breaks through. Back in Washington, reactions were split. A few Democrats quietly stopped by her seat to whisper their support. Even some Republicans, off the record, admitted she had played it perfectly. She set him up, a veteran lawmaker told a colleague. You could see it coming, and he still walked into it. On social media, praise came from unexpected corners. An independent journalist tweeted, "Whatever your politics, Crockett's precision here is something to study, controlled, evidence-based, and devastating." By late afternoon, polls showed a surge in her approval ratings. Among viewers who had seen the hearing, 63% thought she had made her case clearly and effectively. compared to 27% siding with the president's defense. Her staff sifted through a flood of evening news invitations. If we do all of them, it looks like a victory lap, her deputy warned. Better to pick the serious ones. They settled on PBS, a major network, and a top online outlet, keeping the focus on accountability, not personality. We're not spiking the football, Crockett reminded them. The story isn't myths. The evidence? Keep it there. And it lasts. Political forums compared her performance to the most famous congressional cross-examinations in history. A Reddit thread titled "Jasmine Crockett just made history" exploded with commentary. Each exchange dissected like a championship play. Even late-night hosts teased segments. Tonight, we break down the hearing where Crockett went full Perry Mason. On live TV, for Crockett, it wasn't about a personal win. It was about setting a precedent. As she told a fellow committee member in passing, if we let personal interest run unchecked, she didn't have to finish the sentence. The day had already made her point. We're telling the public it's okay and it's not, she said firmly. Her colleague gave a knowing look. You realize you just went head-to-head with the most media-savvy president in history, and right now, you're winning. Crockett allowed a faint smile. Winning isn't the goal. Getting the truth out is. Back in her Dallas district, community leaders were already planning a town hall in her honor. Local radio buzzed with callers, some praising her, others skeptical, but all deeply engaged. For any elected official, that kind of engagement was political gold. Political consultants watching from afar recognized what it meant. One texted another during the hearing, if she wants higher office. This is her launch pad. But while Crockett's star was rising fast, the shockwaves she had unleashed were still spreading, and the fallout for the president was only beginning. The day after the hearing, headlines were everywhere. From national outlets to small-town papers, Crockett confronts Trump on live TV. The photographs told the same story. Crockett mid-sentence, evidence before her, while Trump leaned back, caught between defiance and irritation. Inside the White House, tension ran high. Senior aides avoided reporters. Donors called nonstop, demanding reassurance that the president still had control. The official statement released the day before had backfired. Analysts across the spectrum were dissecting it line by line. Polling showed a small but notable dip in Trump's approval among independents, especially those who valued ethics in government. For an election year, even a small shift mattered. In Crockett's world, the response looked very different. Her office was flooded with thank you emails, handwritten letters, and voicemails from constituents proud to see their representative hold the president accountable. One note, written neatly in cursive, simply read, "For the first time in years, I felt like someone was speaking for me." In Congress, colleagues who had kept their distance were now asking to co-sponsor oversight bills. Committees moved her up in questioning order. She had earned something rare in politics: credibility built from a single, undeniable moment. But Crockett knew the danger of letting that moment fade. A moment is powerful, she told her staff, but if you don't follow it with action, it's just another viral clip. She acted quickly, formally requesting visitor logs, phone records, and travel receipts mentioned in the hearing. She introduced a resolution to strengthen transparency in federal contracts. The message was clear. This wasn't about one confrontation, but about fixing the system so it couldn't be abused. Her follow-through drew praise. The Philadelphia Inquirer editorial board commended her for pairing the moment with a mission. A popular political podcast called her the most dangerous cross-examiner in Congress right now. Trump's response was telling. At a rally in Ohio, he spent 10 minutes attacking her as disrespectful and hungry for the spotlight. But his focus only fed the narrative that she had gotten under his skin. Cable news ran split-screen footage, Crockett calmly laying out evidence. V's, Trump gesturing wildly to a cheering crowd. The contrast was striking. Even some of his advisors privately wished he'd drop it, but Trump wasn't one to back down. That was fine by Crockett. Every time he mentioned her, more people searched her name and found the original clip. "This is bigger than me or him," she later told an interviewer. When you take an oath to serve, you take on the responsibility to put the public's interest above your own. If you can't do that, you shouldn't be in the job, no matter who you are. Her words resonated far beyond politics. Teachers played the clip in civics classes. Editorials used it to push for stronger ethics laws. Even late-night hosts, while joking about the confrontation, acknowledged the seriousness of the issue: personal relationships intersecting with public duty. By month's end, her name was being floated as a future candidate for higher office. She dismissed it publicly, but privately. Her team began preparing. For those who followed the story from that first exchange to its aftermath, one truth was clear: moments of accountability still matter. Crockett had shown that facts, persistence, and composure can cut through the noise, and that even the most powerful can be made to answer when confronted with the truth. And for the public, the takeaway was just as important. The health of a democracy depends not on the comfort of its leaders, but on the courage of those willing to question them.